Hello creators, welcome back to Create, Share, and Give. This is Mayat Marie, and thank you for stopping by. I want to discuss something that's been on my mind, and it's dealing with missing people. So I'm going to rewind a little bit to give you a little backstory on how I became interested in missing persons reports. I remember being with my grandparents in Birmingham, Alabama, which is right next to Atlanta. And there was a serial killer that was on the loose in Atlanta for a very long time. Black children were going missing by the droves. And it took the authorities a long time to catch a person, and that person they caught, that's still questionable. But think about how I must have felt as a child. It was actually quite traumatizing. I would ponder who was the last person that saw them, why no one came forward, and how did someone just vanish out of thin air. Fast forward, I definitely know part of my mission here is to be the voice of the voiceless. I've just always had great empathy. I feel for other people who cannot speak up or defend themselves or may not know how to. So when I created this channel, I wanted to give back as many ways as I could. So I decided to use my talent, and I've done several readings here on my channel. Done one on Sandra Bland, Kanika Jenkins, and a few other people that I felt pulled to their story for whatever reason. And that's part of using my skill to help someone else with information or help give insight on the case or any other case that may be relative to that case. But I'm also careful on what I do because you're pulling energy, and a lot of time that energy is not from a good place. So I pick and choose what I'm willing to deal with. So when people first pass away, I will not touch that until a certain time goes by, until I feel that it is safe and it is all well with their transition. We all are aware of Gabby Petito, and I would like to have a moment of silence for Gabby and for all of the victims, hundreds of thousands of people who are missing. Thank you for giving them peace. Thank you for giving them strength. Thank you for giving them the will to use their stories to help others. So be it, so it is. So there are several things that I think is going to come good out of the Gabby Petito's case. I believe society is going to take a different look, a second look at domestic violence. When the OJ case came out and that domestic violence, there were laws made, people were aware, cops had certain training, and I hope that this will reunite that because clearly we need it. Even in her case, when the police pulled them over, they had a report of physical fighting. They were going beyond the speed limit. Bruises, visible bruises. And they weren't even written up with a traffic ticket for the least. So we all know where that goes back to. That whole case to me was white male patriarchy in the clear. The police officer initially connected with Brian as a young bro, so to speak, and knew the whole situation, and he inserted his family in with that situation and excluded the woman. And that whole silent club, I hope women become more aware of that. The last president made a statement. Now, the highest office of America, this man made a statement that you can just grab them by their private. And women still excuse that as locker room talk and didn't see that type of mentality that was against them. Even as a white female, your privilege still comes second. And that was clear when the officers pulled her over and failed her in the most unimaginable way. But I do think the good also, back to the white female privilege of having the airways cover her story when there are 200,000 or more cases of missing people across the United States. But I have seen a change in the reporters. I've been seeing Jelani's case get more press in the mainstream. And I believe the reason for that is because the media was called out on the preference of the stories they choose to cover. Mia is another case. I felt like she got more coverage when the media was called out. I think there's going to be a big change with that. And people who are experiencing domestic violence, I hope that they take it more seriously. And this will be a wake-up call to be truthful. Sometimes we see people as we want them to be, not who they are. And I believe that was also the case with Gabby Petito and what she wanted to show to the world. But apparently that was false. I think social media is a catalyst for that. Everyone has to show the world how great they are and sometimes hide the truth about what situations are. And I think if we can have that dialogue, you never know who's going through the same thing you may be going through or something similar. I did not want to do a reading on the Gabby Petito's case. Out of respect, give her the peace she needs to transition and also to avoid the dark energy seeping into my hemisphere. I'm going to keep that at bay. But I wanted to touch on that because the story did touch my heart and it brought me back to awareness on how many people still go missing. You know, before it got so bad, we were putting people on the side of milk cartons. And I think that kind of went away. So hopefully the cases that are in the media now can make people more aware of what they see, hear, look for things that may be strange, or I wouldn't even say look. And you don't have to look for anything that's strange, but if something crosses your way or you feel some type of way about, maybe there's a way you can report something to where you feel safe. But it's definitely going to take us as being neighbors to get over the hump. And situations come into our path to teach us certain lessons. And it really is disgusting to me the treatment that Brian was given. And I've seen so many comments under certain news stories on people saying he's innocent until proven guilty. There was no evidence. But yet, when it comes to a person who may be black or brown, then that benefit is thrown out the door. So hopefully people who are such hypocrites in that way will look at themselves and see their bias and see if you're holding any of those biased thoughts that maybe you can reevaluate. I used to watch that show, The First 48. After watching that show for a few seasons, I could not take it anymore. It was 99.9% black young men. Even though the police thought they were suspect, they made a way to railroad them until they got the information or the charge they wanted. With Brian Laundrie, it doesn't seem that that is the way the system works. So those discrepancies, I felt like I had to discuss them to get them out into the element, maybe have a discussion, so that we can look at our own bias on how we see situations, and also to bring awareness to be mindful of your surroundings and be mindful of so many stories of missing people who never get the exposure, even on a small scale. But if we would give our platforms to those who have platforms, to people, then that would help. The mainstream definitely has to do better, and hopefully they are aware and made to be accountable. Even if small, privately owned news venues would run more stories and be inclusive about missing people and their stories, I think we can help so many families. We're so busy within our own lives that we don't have time to check on our neighbor, to really sit and listen to what another person has to say. When a person is crying for help, do we ignore that cry or do we acknowledge it? And I've been working with my throat chakra for a while, and part of that work is being able to express my thoughts, being able to express my way, hopefully with no disrespect to anyone, because we can always agree to disagree. I just wanted to stop by and just release some of my thoughts, and hopefully some of the thoughts were thought-provoking, and hopefully give solutions on how we can come together as a community. Thank you so much for watching, and until we meet again, take care.